So it turns out Jeffrey Okuda was traded, but not to the San Francisco 49ers. Should they have made that move and why they didn't? A Sunday ticket, a little pricey. We'll be diving into that. And general manager superlatives from Pro Football Focus. Man, John Lynch, top 10 in seniority now in the NFL as a general manager. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you as always at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as is the case on Wednesdays, it is another Winky Wednesday. So let's bring on today's guest.
Nicholas Winkler, come on down.
Wink, what's happening, my man? You gonna drop $500 on Sunday ticket?
Dude, that is madness. I get it. Like, it's not that big of a difference from what it was, on DirecTV. But yeah, if you don't have YouTube television, $500. That's like, what, $80 a month? Something like that. Like, that's
Is
crazy,
it 500?
Yeah. If you don't have YouTube TV, it's going to be like $490 or something. It's wild.
Luckily for me, I have YouTube TV. So,
well, it's going to be like 400 then.
When you are a YouTube sensation like Eric Crocker, they probably give it to him for free.
Oh, I wish. It's definitely the only service. I got rid of cable. I use the YouTube TV. It's like $60 a month, and heck yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean,
is Andrew Siciliano out of a job because they're saying that the red zone's going to be the NFL one, not the DirecTV.
I'm a handsome guy anyway, so it's okay.
If you have YouTube TV, if I know I saw this part. If you have YouTube TV, and you pay before June 6th, I think it was, you get it for like $280.
It's like $100 off or something.
Yeah, so I'm probably gonna do that. I mean, I watch the 49ers, and I'm not in the local market, so I kind of have to.
Sure.
It's basically non-local market only for me. I'm local market, so I don't need it. And it's all about that red zone channel for me on Sundays. I got to watch all the games. I got to talk about all the games too. And then, then you lock into the 49ers. So nothing changes for me, luckily, and I don't have to drop the Sunday ticket, but it's going to be how they paid like billions of dollars for the rights, right? It's something crazy. So, it wasn't going to be cheap or free for Sunday ticket.
Well,
yeah, but like
even
you said,
for
red
us
zone
though,
channel.
Nick, Brian, it can be a tax write-off.
That's true.
We have
It's
to
be free.
I gotta watch it for. It's not free. You still pay, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
That's a little bit more money less you have to pay in taxes.
Well, look, overall, Croc, YouTube's paying us more than we're paying them. Let's put that.
There you go.
That is correct. That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Got
Have
that.
them take it out of your paychecks, guys. Then you never see it.
Got that squared away. So less than 24 hours ago, Croc, we were talking about Jeffrey Okudah. Could be a fit for the San Francisco 49ers. Turns out rumors were true. Jeffrey Okudah on the move. He's going to the Atlanta Falcons for a 5th-round pick. Croc, should the 49ers been in on Jeffrey Okudah, former number 3 pick in the NFL draft, for a 5th-round selection?
I saw your response on Twitter, and you made a great point with like the money part of it, right? But like Brandon Ayuk, and for all the reasons we said, a trade made sense for him because you essentially have 2 years with him before you have to make a big-time commitment. Yeah, I might be inclined to use a 5th on Okudah and pay him whatever that 5th-year option is.
It would be basic. Yeah, really, the 5th-year option for a number 3 pick.
That's a lot.
Oh, it's a lot. Yeah.
What is it?
I don't know what it is exactly.
I thought it was based on something with your performance, though. I thought
it is. It's performance. It's position. So each position group is different, and you're in a performance tier. I could look it up real quick, but it would be hard right now to make that call, which is the reason the Lions are trading him away, is because they clearly weren't going to pick up his 5th-year option. Does Atlanta like him enough to where it's not a 1-year, $5 million rental for them? Is it a longer term thing? And they do pick up his 5th-year option. It's a great question. I don't know if he's shown enough to pick up the 5th-year option.
I would like him. I mean,
you guys got me all excited listening to the pod. You're talking. I'm like, yeah, go after him, go get. And then, Atlanta really.
He fits. I think. And now again, I'm going off of my evaluation of him from college. And that version of him, what he was for Ohio State, fits what the 49ers do and how they could utilize him. And then if you get any type of pass rush outside of Nick Bosa, I mean, I think that only makes him even better, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, I like it. I mean, high-end ability, not elite talent, but, I mean, he played that. I'm telling you, he played that quarters. It's some of the best I've ever seen from a press bail standpoint, and I think that's something that he could definitely hone in at the NFL level. When the Lions drafted him, I said they did the kid a disservice because they're going to try to use him like they used Darius Slay. And, man, that's exactly what they did, having him follow guys around. That is not his game. He wouldn't have to do that as much on the 49ers or at all. So, I think the expectations for what he was and to justify taking the corner number 3 overall, Detroit, it maybe didn't make sense. But the 49ers, hey, man, we give up a 5th. We might have to pay you $5 million this year, $10 million next year, whatever it is. But if we could get you to play at the high level and get that confidence back, because cornerback is all about confidence.
Yep.
And once it starts to leave and you feel like the organization might not be feeling you and it's kind of weird vibes, okay, I might just need a fresh start. You go to the 49ers, you play with some guys that are going to, hey, man, this is great. What, Hufanga? Man, he's like this hang loose Polynesian guy, high spirits. You got Diamador Lenore, he's the hyena, and it's kind of young there in the secondary. You got Travarius Ward, you get the feed off of him, and then just the defensive staff there. I think that would have been a good look for him, but unfortunately, it just won't be.
So the 5th-year option number for Okuda that you would have to pick up this May, even though he's in the 4th year of his contract, so you'd have 1 year. The team would be paying him $5 million this year. And if you don't pick up the option, then you're basically trading him for 1 year, $5 million. And if you pick
which
up
is worth it, right? 5th round pick. 1 year, $5 million, 5th round pick.
That'd be enough. I think so. It's $11.5 million. So it's not the high end because his production and playing time hasn't been enough to put him in the higher tier. So it's not the higher tier, even though he's the number 3 overall pick at cornerback. $11.5 million would be the 5th year option. So you'd be guessing a little bit on that, and it's not crazy money. And in the end, it could be a value, but we haven't even really seen any corners recently in free agency get a lot more than that per year anyway. So I would guess that the Falcons are not planning on picking up the 5th year option. That's why it was only a 5th round pick. So in a vacuum, 5th round pick for Okuda at the $5 million salary, I think that's totally fair. And I would have done it for the 49ers just based on that. The reason the 49ers didn't do it, though, is because they're not $5 million over the salary cap. So they literally, I don't think, could have done it unless they restructured some other things first. And maybe they didn't think it was worth that. To me, what needed to happen, and this is a trade I've talked about multiple times now, is the Lions would have had to be willing to take Kinlaw back in the trade. And so then now you're paying less money. They're taking some salary back from you. You're trading guys that you're probably not going to pick up the 5th year option but maybe they're a better fit for your football team and need a fresh start and all of that. That would have made sense to me. And maybe the 49ers offered that. I don't know. And the Lions weren't having it. But I think salary is probably a big part of why the 49ers weren't in on a 5th round pick for Jeffrey Okuda.
I think
it'd be hard to buy in on Kinlaw. What's that?
I think he goes to Atlanta to die. Like
that's it. After this year, we may not see him get a couple of 1 year contracts, and then
across from AJ Terrell, so he doesn't have to follow guys or anything like that. Doesn't have to be the number 1 corner. I'm trying to think of what kind of coverages they use in Atlanta, because I know they have sort of an odd multiple kind of a front that they use. That's sort of like a hybrid 3-4 up front. But what kind of coverages do they use on the back end? Are they still doing the cover 3 stuff?
Whatever they're doing, I mean, do they got a pass rush? I mean, ultimately, listen, everybody talks about coverage. None of that matters if you don't have a pass rush. And I think the 49ers, somehow, they have pass rush because of one guy, and that guy's name is Nick Bosa. But, and that just makes everything easier. But there's a lot of people like, man, the only reason why that guy was good was because you had a pass rush. Well, nobody's good without a pass rush in the NFL anymore.
Right.
Nobody. You got to have a pass rush. So you go somewhere, Atlanta, and they don't have guys getting after it. Even if it's just one guy, like the 49ers have Nick Bosa, then as a cornerback, especially a guy who's already, your clock is a little sped up, you might be in trouble.
Next, guys, let's talk about John Lynch and where he ranks among some of the GMs in the NFL. And and how PFF grades out the 49ers draft picks in round 1, on day 2, on day 3 of the NFL draft in John Lynch's tenure in the years 2017 through 2022 next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You've heard us talk about this mobile game app, and if you've ever thought of that you'd make a good general manager, right? You could be in charge, you could draft, you could go through free agency and build yourself a franchise. I've thought that, and I played the game, and it might not be as easy as you think to create a dynasty with Ultimate Football GM. Manage every aspect of your franchise. You are in control of hiring and firing the right coaches and coordinators. You got to put together the right scheme. That's the first thing I did when I got my franchise. Got rid of the coaching staff. I wanted to run a certain kind of offense. I wanted the West Coast style personnel. And so I had to gut the thing first and then try to build it up, and got myself a quarterback, doing a lot of trades. And it was so fun to try to chase that and build yourself a dynasty. And it's realistic and very challenging as well with Ultimate Football GM. You are hiring and firing coaches and coordinators, managing the finances of your organization, negotiating player salaries, terms, navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft, injuries, player personnel issues, and some things that pop up, ups and downs of a season that you might not even expect to pop up. And Locked On 49ers listeners will get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using promo code Locked On in the game store. Ultimate Football GM, completely free, playable offline, play on the go when and where you want to. Use promo code Locked On inside the game to get a little boost to your franchise. Ultimate-GM.com, or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-GM.com. Ultimate Football GM, start your dynasty today. So looking at the latest article from Brad Spielberger, friend of the program at PFF, taking a look at NFL general managers. And just initially right off the bat, guys, this struck me. John Lynch, who's been 49ers GM since 2017, is in the top 10 for senior general managers in the league. Only 9 general managers have been general managers of their teams longer, and 2 of those own the stinking teams, right? So Jerry Jones of the Cowboys, Mike Brown of the Bengals, who've been in charge of their franchises since the 90s, if you take them out of it, the only GMs that have had their positions for their organizations longer than John Lynch are Bill Belichick since 2000 with the Patriots, Mickey Loomis in New Orleans, John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks, Howie Roseman with the Eagles, Les Snead with the Rams, Tom Telesco of the Chargers, and Jason Light of the Buccaneers. And then next is tied with Chris Ballard, both hired in 2017, respectively, with the 49ers and the Indianapolis Colts. Isn't that crazy that 2/3 of the league has turned over a GM since John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan took over the 49ers? Because they feel fresh and somewhat new even still, but it's been 6 years.
It's one of those things where
John Lynch has been really good too. I mean,
yeah,
you look at how this team is built, the roster, the moves. I feel like the calculated aggressiveness that they've had, I think at times 49 fans want them to be more aggressive, but I think they've been plenty aggressive when you start to look at all the moves that they've made, the different things that they've done to put themselves in position in the middle of the year, right? Going out and getting Emmanuel Sanders, that's a really good move by the GM. Going out and getting Christian McCaffrey, good move by the GM. You know, there's been obviously there's some downs during that time, but ultimately the 49ers are viewed the way they are because of the roster, not even because of the quarterback position, which a lot of teams is like, oh man, like, yo, this GM's doing a great job. And you say that because, well, they got it right at quarterback and they got this amazing quarterback. 49ers don't have that, and they still been able to field one of the best rosters in the NFL. And then how good of a GM do you have to be to where you still 2 years later or going into year 3, you don't know what you have in this guy that you traded all these picks up for, which would be a blunder any other time. But you drafted a guy, Mr. Irrelevant, the very last pick in the draft, whether it's the scouts or whatever, but they pulled the trigger on it. And now all of a sudden, hey, we're still rocking and rolling. We're still good. I think it takes a special front office to be able to pull off some of those things. So, John Lynch doing a great job.
I mean, you're right, and you left off one of the biggest, I think, moves that John Lynch did in the midseason was acquiring Jimmy Garoppolo, which really turned the franchise around. I mean, they were dead. They were garbage, right? I mean, we went through those tough seasons as 49er fans, and then you get Jimmy Garoppolo, and there's hope, right? And there's like, oh, they went out and they got a guy, and then they signed him to the huge contract, and it's like, all right, John Lynch, which is wild to think about that it's been since 2017, because when he was hired, there was a lot of like, what, John Lynch, the announcer guy, the former player. Okay. He thought it was going to be like 1 or 2 seasons, and then he was going to step aside and be like, all right, I'm going back into the booth. But here he is, number 10 on the list of seniority, and he's still going strong. I love it.
I thought they were trolling when I saw it on TV, because we got to remember where the 49ers were during that time. You basically were going on your fourth head coach in 4 years.
Yeah. It was a circus.
It was a circus. So it's like you're going through this circus. They had not yet hired Shanahan. I think most people assumed it would be him, but you didn't know. Right. And all of a sudden it's like, 49ers. And Louis Riddick, and there's all these other names that you think it might be. And it's like John Lynch from TV. And I'm like, oh my gosh. It wasn't that I didn't think that it would work, right? I mean, I just had no idea. But to me, it just came off as a joke. Like, okay, what are we doing here? And it was
zero.
A great move.
The guy was zero front office experience. And so my first, when that report came out, was they're hiring John Lynch as GM. I was like, oh, that's weird. There's another guy named John Lynch that works in some front office in the NFL. Let's go figure out who this guy is. And I was like, oh, it's that John Lynch? Really? That guy? And clearly John Lynch is his first guy, and he's competitive. And I think you're right, Croc. They've been very aggressive, and the competitiveness of both Kyle and this should be kind of Kyle and John Lynch. They're kind of together making these decisions for the roster, so it's not just John Lynch's roster. But they've been very aggressive, and they're so competitive. And if there's a great player out there, they're going to be in on it. And we saw that with Trent Williams. We've seen it with Christian McCaffrey. We saw them try to go do something in the draft to go get a quarterback. And maybe even if the process is wrong and they're overpaying for some of these things, they're trying to get the best guys that they can find, and they're aggressive, and they're not sitting on their hands and letting other people do work without them being involved. So I think fans can appreciate that.
Well, here's the thing, Peacock, and you kind of look at it, and this is not to diminish what John Lynch has done, but just for John Lynch to get the job and do as well as he has done throughout this time. You just talked about it on a recent episode, how you could put together a staff and, you handpick all your guys from social media, and how well of a job you believe that we could do based on what you did as a one-man army doing your shadow drafts, right? Like your shadow drafts were good. You were on par with what the 49ers were doing. Some things were better. Some things were the same. Richie James, George Kittle, you had some of the same picks at the same time as the 49ers or around there. I think you had Kittle going around earlier.
I had Kittle in the fourth, yeah. And my drafts especially look good compared to Trent Baalke versus the John Lynch, and they were way better than me in the late rounds, and I was better than them, including I think the newer regime in the early rounds.
So I say that to say that we're giving him a lot of credit, deservedly so, but like how hard, and I'm not saying it's easy to be a GM. I think the biggest thing is being able to take what this guy says and what this guy says, and kind of formulate that to help you with your picks and not getting your own way. And I think that's the biggest issue GMs have. They're so prideful, and it's like, I want this guy, and that's it. Or the owner comes down, you got to take this guy. And I think Jet York getting out of the way, I think that really helped. But I think the biggest quality that John Lynch has, I think that has him as successful as he is, hey, is this what you want to do? All right, we'll do it, and I'll make sure we make it happen. Or he could be a Trent Baalke, Trent Baalke has some good picks, but overall it was, regardless of coach, regardless of scheme, he was going to draft the guy he wanted, regardless of the input from the outside guys. And I think ultimately that's why he ended up kind of getting ran out of San Francisco. So John Lynch has done a really good job, which I think you and we would bounce things off of each other, right? Okay, what do you like about this guy? Okay, should we take this guy? Or, nah, don't take him because of this. And you listen to your scouts. John Lynch does a great job of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things John Lynch said in one of his pressers was, look, I'm smart enough to know what I don't know. And he brought in Adam Peters. Like, what an amazing move that was. You might want to put John Lynch / Kyle Shanahan / Adam Peters on that list, because that's his dude. That's the guy that's his right-hand man. And as a general manager of a restaurant, I have 87 employees. So I know what it's like to kind of be at the top and be able to, I know what I don't know, right? So I have people that do. I have a manager here, I have a manager there, I have a manager there, and I have all these different areas that I need to oversee. And I think that's what John Lynch does really well. You mentioned it, that he doesn't overstep his bounds, right? He knows, like, okay, hey, is this your guy? You tell me this is the way to go? Okay, does everybody agree? All right, let's go. It's not just like, this is how it is. I don't care what you say. This is where we're going, which, we saw a little bit of in the past for the 49ers. So I love what Lynch has been doing.
Yeah. And I would imagine Winkler doesn't take what other people have to say as he runs his ship, like John Lynch, right? You Iron Fist.
Dude, I base it off of John Lynch. What are you talking about? I love it. He's my role model.
So overall, yeah, and I want to talk about some of the grades that PFF has here for general managers and where the 49ers rank in, early picks, late picks, and, and we can look at position groups the 49ers have targeted under John Lynch too. And I think some of them are pretty obvious and some of them might be a little bit surprising as well. Next. Thanks, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. For your second listen, why don't you check out the brand newest from Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes. Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino take you through what it's like to build a successful NFL franchise every Monday through Friday, talking draft, talking free agency, cap management. Find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, as it pertains to the 49ers drafting early from 27, and thanks to PFF and Brad Spielberger, again, who wrote this article, they broke it down in 10-year splits and then from 2017 to 2022 as well in the draft, which is nice because that's exactly when Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch showed up on the scene for the San Francisco 49ers. So I'm going to reference the 2017 to 2022 results. And, some of those results still incomplete, but the most successful drafting in the first round, guys, where would you guess the 49ers ranked from 2017 to 2022? Team draft success accounting for positional value and weighted by round here. Where would the 49ers rank with round 1 picks, do you think?
Because of positional value and you don't have the quarterback nailed down, I would say that kind of bumps them down the list a little bit. But then you got Nick Bosa, he's an edge rusher, so that might balance it out a little bit. But I'd say probably around I don't want to take the easy way. I want to go one or the other. I'm going to go 17, 18.
Yeah, I was going to go in the low 20s, like 21, 22, because Bosa, is really one of the only big hits, right? You've had a couple of other good draft picks, but quite a few bad ones as well.
Especially with the second contract of Mike McGlinchey. I think that goes down as a big hit. Bosa obviously goes down as a big hit, but you can't forget 2017 with two big misses in Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster. And right now with the quarterback thing, which is, not a hit yet. So, and you nailed it. They're 9th worst in first round weighted by positional value as well. Accounting positional value weighted in the first round of draft picks from 2017 to 2022. So 9th worst team in the NFL drafting, according to PFF and those grades. And
do you get a pass because you've done so well in mid to late rounds?
Well, that certainly helps.
In my book.
That's what's crazy about this 49ers team. If Trey Lance turns out to be just a bust, never turns out to be anything for the 49ers, whether they trade him away or he just stays and isn't good or whatever. For the 40 and when this trade happened, it was like, man, this is a weird process for me. Just be right and it'll be okay. And it was
always a weird process for you. It always was. Like you said that from the jump.
Yeah. And I remember the first day the trade happened when they went up to number 3, the reporting from Schefter left out one of the first round picks. And I went live immediately with Kyle Krabs, by the way, of Locked On NFL Scouting, also the host of Locked On Dolphins. And it was like neither one of us knew what was going on. I was like, oh, we got to do an emergency crossover podcast here. And we started talking about it. And Schefter's first report was that they moved up from 12 to number 3 for a first and a third. They didn't add in the other first round pick, which makes a difference. I was like, that's actually not that bad a value to go from 12 to 3, and it was like, I was kind of, and then I found out later there's another first round pick on it. And then they're like, well, we don't even know what quarterback we're going to pick. And it's like, because I thought when I heard it, like, they're going to get Justin Fields. And it's like, he's talented enough and that makes sense. And then it was like, and then looking back, I was like, well, it's not like, let's say Kyle Shanahan wanted Mac Jones all along. That's not better. He was worth going up to number 3 for. It's kind of crazy. Thank God it was at least a guy with high upside. The Patriots might be trying to trade Mac Jones. So just the whole trade was wild from the start. When they did it, how early they did it, they still hadn't completed evaluations. This was the COVID offseason, so they hadn't met any of these human beings yet. Have a dinner with the guy before you decide to spend all those resources to go get a player in the draft, right? So it was a wild process. And the fact that process could end in complete disaster, and the fact that there was no way you would fire John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan That's what's wild to me is how well they've come out of that without even having any value for those 3 first-round picks and that quarterback yet. Because at the time I said, oh, it just got to work. That's the only rule. You better be right here, because if you're not going to have a job in 2024, and they're for sure going to have a job in 2024, no matter what happens with Trey Lance. So it's a testament to the rest of the work they've done. How about day 2, rounds 2 and 3. Again, this is team draft success accounting for positional value and weighted by round. Where would you rank the 49ers on day 2 of the NFL draft from 2017 to 2022?
A lot better, I believe, because you got Deebo Samuel, you got Fred Warner, right? I feel like those are going to bump your numbers up. Those are going to make you a little bit better.
But the positions, though, it's not like they're at
the no
like
quarterback thing hurts.
Yeah, even then it's not edge rusher. It's not like cornerback, like some positions that might be a little bit harder. There are a lot of teams that have good production out of second-round receivers. There are a lot of teams that get second and third round, good production out of linebackers. So I would say it's probably on par with their first-round picks. So around 21st, 22nd.
I think another part of it is number of picks. So you've gotten production from more players than maybe some other teams as well. That helps. And I'm looking at this list, and I'm looking at a lot of teams at the top have had a lot of picks. The 49ers are actually, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10th. In day 2, which is surprising. I thought it'd be a little bit closer, middle of the road, but they have had the 2 stars in Fred Warner and Deebo Samuel, and wide receiver value is kind of a premium. Wide receiver is now a premium position, especially based on what Deebo Samuel made in his second contract. So big hits there. Aaron Banks is looking good now for the 49ers. They've had some other obvious misses, but a lot of those misses. That's why I'm a little worried about these picks, because 99 to 102, that's an area the 49ers have not been good in the NFL draft. Is those late third-round picks, because really the only really good third-round pick they've made is Fred.
Running backs.
The thing I struggle with there, like when we start talking about the value of it, right, and I'm trying to figure out their kind of how they go about this, but look at some of the receivers around the league right now, some of the best receivers, and they're second, third-round picks. I mean, even from that class, right? Like, let's say that same class that Deebo Samuel was in, because he's the one that's helping the 49ers right now. A.J. Brown, D.K. Metcalf, Terry McLaurin was a third-round pick. I mean, there's a couple years later, there's T. Higgins. There's Michael Pittman, guys that are 1,000-plus yard receivers. Like, I mean, it's like you see that a lot. Like, it's not out of the ordinary to have a productive receiver. Now, again, Deebo, he's a special kind of talent. But again, I mean, those teams would look at it like, well, we like T. Higgins more than, we would love to have Deebo, but we're just fine, if not more fine, with a guy like T. Higgins. Like, there are teams that are getting a lot of production out of second-round receivers. So I don't even think it's special that you have Deebo. It's great that you have him on your team, but in the sense of what's going on around the NFL, there's a lot of, a decent amount of second-round, third-round receivers that are good.
And by the way, the metric they're using at PFF here to determine how good a player is by their proprietary PFF wins above replacement. So that's how they're grading each player, what their value is.
So Fred Warner cranks that up.
Well, and Deebo too, because Deebo's value might be way more important to the 49ers than T. Higgins' value to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Right.
Yeah, more wins. Yeah, more wins created, basically, right. And then so this is a little surprising. So I did think the 49ers were good on day 2, but with the number of picks they've had, and I think the hit rate is a little lower. I expected them to be more toward the middle of the pack than toward the top of the pack, which they were. And then looking at day 3 of the draft, rounds 4 through 7, I fully expected to see the 49ers at number 1. And they're not, surprisingly. They're about in the same spot, right around 10, 12 here. Let's see exactly what it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They're 11 in the NFL, according to PFF, team draft success based on those wins above replacement, accounting for positional value and weighted by round. Now, a lot of the 49ers hits have been not high-end positions. So, offensive lineman and tight end and, strong safety, defensive tackle. So maybe that's why it comes down a little bit, but I think the 49ers have been the best in the NFL from 2017 to 2022 in rounds 5 through 7. And now they got quarterbacks too.
Well, who are these other teams drafted?
I know, right?
So number 1 is
probably
the
linemen and stuff, right?
Number 1 is the Kansas City Chiefs. No, this is for rounds 4 through 7. Kansas City
like
Chiefs.
I want to see
Sneed,
names.
okay.
Yeah.
The corner Sneed, he's good.
Yeah,
I mean,
4th rounder. They got last year they had the 7th round running back who ended up being their starter,
Isaiah Pacheco. Even at running back, I mean, you talk about not having a whole lot of value at a position.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the lowest positional values.
They got
trying to wrap my head around
Jerick
this for the
McKinnon off the
Niners,
street, and he
man.
had like the most receiving touchdowns in the NFL or something crazy.
That was big. Great second half. But it's like the Niners have what? So you got Kittle, obviously, which was a huge one. Even Elijah Mitchell, which has been solid for them. Where was Hufanga drafted?
Yeah, 5th round.
Okay, I mean, there's 3 solid starters right there, late rounds, right?
I'm racking my brain at who the Chiefs have drafted that I would take their haul over the 49ers in the stretch.
Juwan Jennings has been good.
Or even just how
rounder.
they would have accumulated more wins. Because the Niners have had a lot of picks too. And so have the Chiefs. The Chiefs had a ton of picks here.
I think we just tossed this all out, right?
Well, this might be a case of, and we all, follow the NFL very closely. I know I watch a lot of other teams, but when it comes to where guys are drafted, I know much more about the 49ers just in general, especially like mid to late rounds. So we can feel it a little bit more because we watch every game, and it's like, oh, Diamador Lenore, he was a 5th, 6th round pick. He's playing a lot for the 49ers. Oh, we could do that a lot with the 49ers. Oh, Dre Greenlaw, like really good,
DJ Jones.
Maybe other teams say, we got those same type of guys filling out our roster.
Yeah, it's a good call.
George Kittle.
We got Homer Eyes.
I don't see it. I still don't see
I know. It's like they like these guys would have to have like, do you have all pros? Because the 49ers have all pros that were drafted in the 5th round. 2 of them now, Hufanga and Kittle.
We got to get to the bottom of this. We're going to draft.
And Greenlaw, I felt like should have been an all pro.
Should be. Yeah, 100%.
Let's see. We're going by team. Kansas City Chiefs. Let's see draft history here. 2022 through.
You guys wrap that up. I got to get going. My kids got My guys got baseball. I'm a coach. I can't miss out on it.
Go coach Young Bixby.
Enjoy, guys. Figure this out. I want to listen. I want to hear what we missed out on, what we didn't get.
And remember, they're not teaching the chop down on the ball technique anymore. You got to get that angle of attack going.
Get that elbow up, right? It's all about launch angle.
All right. Thanks, Wink. All right, Croc. We're taking this podcast longer than we expected here. Saying goodbye to Nicholas Winkler. I always appreciate him jumping on the show. My former colleague in the radio realm and former TV sports anchor turned restaurateur. Croc, let's get to the bottom of this real quick. And just the team that's number 1 here, Kansas City Chiefs. So this is rounds 4 through 7. Last year, starting in 2017 because they'll have had more time to create value. Round 4, 2017, Jehu Chesson, wide receiver from Michigan. Round 5, Ukeme Alegwe, never heard of him, linebacker from Georgia Southern. Leon McQuay, defensive back from USC. Okay, that's a big 0 for 2017. 2018, day 3, round 4, Armani Watts, defensive back from Texas A&M. Tremont Smith, DB from Central Arkansas. Khalil McKenzie, defensive tackle from Tennessee. And that's 2018. Again, not even close. 2019, round 4, Rashad Fenton, DB from South Carolina. Darwin Thompson, running back from Utah State. Nick Allegretti, a center from Illinois. 2020. All right, L'Jarius Sneed. Here we go. L'Jarius Sneed. That's a big value pick there. 4th round.
Fenton too. Fenton's like a starter for them. I think he is a starter.
Is at safety?
Like nickel.
Nickel. Okay, nickel. Michael Dana, defensive end from Michigan, didn't do much. Thacarius Keys, DB from Tulane, didn't do much. And that's it for 2020. 2021. Great draft. Creed Humphrey in the 2nd round, but we're talking round 4s through 7s. They didn't have a 7th round pick here. They've had a lot of non-7 round picks. Noah Gray, round 4, tight end from Duke. Cornell Powell, wide receiver from Clemson, round 5. Round 6, Trey Smith, guard from Tennessee, who's been a good pick for them. So that was a hit. So two really good picks and a third pretty good pick as well. And then in 2022, round 4, Brian Cook, DB. I think he started games for them. Strong safety out of Cincinnati. Leo Chenal, linebacker from Wisconsin. Joshua Williams, DB from Fayetteville State. Darian Kennard, from a tackle from Kentucky. Jalen Watson, DB from Washington State. And Isaiah Pacheco, 7th round running back. And
I think Watson played well, and then Pacheco, but I don't – I don't know
That's
if
not even
that's
close.
better than the 49ers haul.
No,
Now,
I
again,
mean,
I
it's
don't
not
watch
even
those
remotely
guys, and now because I wonder if you had a Chiefs host on, and he's like, Diamador Lenore, but
right.
it's like for us, it's like, man, he's pretty valuable.
I mean, even if you just went by the obvious hits, right? The guys who got to their second contracts and got paid by whether it was the 49ers or somebody else. Let's go to 2017. George Kittle, one of the best tight ends in the NFL, big time free agent contract. DJ Jones got a big contract last offseason by the Denver Broncos. That's just 2017 alone with Trent Taylor, Peter Tamoipianu, Adrian Colbert. Adrian Colbert was 2017, huh? And I'm missing one. No, that's I am missing Joe Williams, who did absolutely zero. But zero is still zero. And then 2018, Richie James in the 7th round, Julian Taylor in the 6th round, 7th round, Marcel Harris in the 6th round, DJ Reed in the 5th round, Kentavious Street,
Reed got paid.
Yeah. So DJ Reed got paid. So already I would take the 49ers just those 2 years, 2017 and 2018, versus everything that the Chiefs have had. Now let's go to 2019, where the 49ers got Dre Greenlaw in the 5th round, Mitch Wishnowsky, who, punters aren't super valuable, but he's not a zero. He's given the 49ers their punter for the current and future there. Caden Smith, Justin School, and Tim Harris round out the 2019 draft for the 49ers on day 3. Then 2020, only 3 picks on day 3. The 49ers only had 5 picks that year after all the trades. Colton McKivitz, who's going to be the starting tackle for him this year, Charlie Warner, and Juwan Jennings. So 3.
Juwan Jennings,
Yeah, 3 pretty good players there. Especially
I don't know how. We haven't even gotten to like Lenore and Hufanga and those guys, and to me, it's not even close.
Now, so it's already the Niners have already won this. Now you go to 2021, and you've got Ambry Thomas, Jalen Moore, but then you've got in the 5th round, Diamador Lenore, Talanoa Hufanga, and then in round 6, Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah, it ain't close.
Close. Yeah, not even close. And that's not even talking about Spencer Burford, starting guard, Womack, who might be the nickel this year for the 49ers. So not even close. I question the veracity of the wins above replacement metric for PFF. If the other ones made sense a little bit, but the day 3, it's not jiving with me for value. Niners have drafted way more value than I think any team in the league, and especially the team that's at number 1 for them, which is the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think this is when we tweet them and at them and tell them that PFF is trash. I see that a lot.
When you don't agree with them, people go at them hard. I'm not going to do that, but
quote tweet them and say PFF is trash.
All right. Thanks everybody for making Locked On 49ers your first listen. Thanks to Wink for coming on with us once again on another Winky Wednesday. And thanks everybody for making us your first listen. Croc and I back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.
Go Lakers.